Some people cannot believe that a magician can fool them in such a way that they can't figure it out. But magicians can, and magicians do.
James Randi is a Canadian-American magician/skeptic who specializes in challenging the claims of people who believe they obtain otherworldly powers. Randi was born on the 7th of August 1928 in Toronto, Canada. Randi began his life escapades as a magician in the 1920s. He was inspired by the likes of the Great Mazzini, a magician in the 1930s and 40s who he saw live in his childhood and teenage years. Randi is known for not just matching the records of the great Harold Houdini, but in fact breaking Houdini's records throughout his career as a magician.
I wanted to break his records. I wanted to stay in a sealed metal coffin longer than he did, get out of a straitjacket faster than he did, out of chains, out of leg irons and handcuffs. I said, if the man could make it, I could break it.
Randi decided to eventually retire from being a magician when a truck involving him being submerged in a water crate almost killed him. Randi did his final trick, which involved him escaping a straitjacket while attached to a bungee cable which was connected to a moving helicopter. Randi decided to devote his life to debunking the claims of psychics and other people who believed they had otherworldly powers.
Let's get something straight right from the very beginning. I don't reveal magicians' tricks.
Okay.
I reveal the tricks that the so-called psychics and paranormalists are preaching to everybody as if they were facts, because people should not be deceived in that way.
Psychics such as Uri Geller, famous for his spoon-bending trick, became one of Randi's targets for debunking, as Geller was literally selling a lie, claiming that he could successfully bend spoons with the power of his mind. Randi, of course, knew how to do this trick and went to every television show Geller appeared on in the 70s for the purpose of debunking Geller's false trick.
Psychokinetic energy melts the molecular structure.
It seems to be... Oh my. I don't need to bend, I just say bend.
Randi and Geller just went back and forth like gladiators. It was fun to watch.
Can you do this spoon bending trick?
Does Dolly Parton sleep on her back?
Uri Geller himself eventually landed an appearance on The Tonight Show, which was the most popular TV show at the time. The crew of The Tonight Show rang up Randi and asked how they could prevent Geller from carrying out his fake routine on the show. Randi told them to supply their own props and to not let Geller and his team anywhere near them. Geller went on the show and did not attempt any of his tricks, including the spoon bending trick, which led the show to quickly cut to an ad break which lasted 20 minutes. The show went back on air and Geller claimed that he was not strong enough on the night before his appearance on the show drastically ended.
Sarge, we are back. Your Uri was telling me you don't feel what, strong tonight?
I don't
Is that
feel strong. It's not all tonight. Right now I'm feeling being pressed and then I can't.
Well, I'm
I
not
can't
trying
do
to
my
press
thing.
you. I really not.
No, you're only telling me, well, will you try that or that or that?
Well, I thought that was the idea of. No, I'm not trying to put you down.
Unbelievably, this didn't even have an effect on Geller's career at the time. However, his star did eventually fade, as said by Randi.
Much to my surprise, the Tonight Show episode didn't have much effect on Uri Geller's career. Neither did the book that I wrote about him. But eventually, his star faded. Why people are so drawn to the irrational is something that has always puzzled me.
Randi is also well known for debunking faith healers like Peter Popoff and described Popoff as a true scoundrel.
A man like Reverend Peter Popoff is a very dangerous man. In my estimation, he was a real scoundrel.
Your good news from Charles before everything is over. I'll tell you, he's going to be completely delivered because of your prayers, because of your faith. Here it comes, complete healing in Jesus. Woo! Mighty name right now, right now, right now. Amen. It's all right to praise the Lord.
Popoff sold his religion for the purpose of making his pockets bigger and preyed on the innocent, simple-minded folk through his false faith-healing ceremonies in which he claimed to have a personal connection to God. Randi actually set up a radio signal detector in one of Popoff's faith-healing services. His private investigator controlling this radio signal detector managed to detect a signal of Popoff's wife feeding Popoff information about the people. He knew this information through prayer cards the people in the service had filled out before the show in the foyer.
I suspected that Popoff's revelations were other than divine. The radio scanner we brought to the hall picked up a decidedly worldly source.
Hello, Petey. Can you hear me? If you can't, you're in trouble.
Popoff was being prompted by his wife through a wireless earpiece.
John?
Dearly Johnson.
She'd gotten her information from prayer cards filled out by the faithful before the show began.
She wants to get rid of the walker.
You want to get rid of this walker, sister?
Randy went on to play the recorded audio of Popoff's wife on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson the following day, the biggest show on television at the time. This effectively ended Popoff's faith healing circuit for good. Unfortunately, Popoff went to make even more money through other ways of being a scoundrel as a televangelist promoting his ridiculous products.
This is water from the pool that the Lord himself led the Christians to during the horrible Chernobyl nuclear accident. Tens of thousands died, and yet every Christian was miraculously spared.
I decided to sit down with the head of the Australian Skeptics Association, Tim Mendham, to see what his opinion was on James Randi and psychics in general.
Randy's probably the best known name in the skeptical circles, and he covers a very broad area from psychics to health areas to monsters and that sort of stuff as well. Randy's debunking of those people, Peter Popoff and Geller, has been pretty definitive, but they're still around. See, the whole concept of a skeptic is someone who says prove it, right? I mean, it's not saying it's not true, we just say prove it. And if you come along and you can say, I can fly, my response is, well, show me. But show me under conditions where you're not going to cheat. I want to see if there's any strings hanging down, that sort of thing. And it's as simple as that. So it's basically, yeah, you've got a claim, show me. You have to prove your claim is correct. It's not necessarily up to me to disprove it, but you've got a pretty unusual claim, and you should have unusual evidence to prove it. And yeah, this is what you find out, is that most people who make this claim don't. No, so he has been an important figure. But I've met him a number of times. Oh, wow. And I've met him in private and had good chats with him, etc., that sort of stuff. So, no, he seems a very genuine people. He likes to meet people. He's certainly not arrogant in any way. No, he's a nice guy.
He's a great guy.
He knows a lot, and he gets angry. He does get angry. I've seen him angry with people, and that's, but he knows that someone is a crook, and it's obviously a crook, and yet they're still abusing people, and that's when skeptics get angry.
No, I have gone after Sylvia Brown because she's a big figure. Would you mind?
Randy, when asked why he thinks people like Popoff and Geller do what they do, often says that along with them both wanting the money, they get a huge surge of power over the people they are fooling and conning, and go on to actually feel like godly figures in the world when they do this sort of thing. Randy himself has actually once been in the same position of power in which Uri Geller and Peter Popoff have once been in. In his early days as a magician, he was often approached by fans who thought he actually had supernatural powers when he performed his magic tricks on stage. He felt this surge of power over people when they were gullible enough to think he was actually a legitimate psychic. It was at this moment that Randy said that he realized he wanted to prevent the public from being gullible and being fooled by the real villains who are out to deceive them.
I know that surge of power that you feel when you use a cheap trick to manipulate someone else into thinking you have powers that you don't have. And I think it's very much to the good of the world that when Randy felt that power, he backed away from it. And out of that feeling of that power, came a rage.
In the 1970s and 80s, Randy realized that real scientists and psychologists were taking Uri Geller's magician's tricks disguised as psychic powers seriously. So he decided to seek the assistance of two young amateur magicians who had the ability to replicate the same magic tricks that Geller claimed to be real, and disguise them as being real psychic powers. The two young men managed to fool many scientists despite days of testing to see if they had powers. They used sleight of hand and basic magician's tricks as many of the ways they deceived these scientists.
My opinion has always been that parapsychologists, no matter how well funded, would not be able to properly judge where someone has set out to purposely deceive them. And I had come to the conclusion that the only way to show them would be to perpetrate an outright hoax by introducing some tricksters into the laboratory that I knew I could trust.
Eventually, Randy and the two kids revealed in a press conference that after 2 months of this test, it was a hoax. Through all of this, they actually managed to make one of the scientists have a mental breakdown over being so obsessively immersed about these two kids having psychic powers. This was when they really decided to end this hoax.
The big day comes, the one that Mike and I have been waiting for. We're going to reveal that everything is a hoax.
I'm going to ask these two gentlemen a very simple, direct question. Can you tell us, how do you do it?
As I walked up to the microphone, I said, it's very simple.
Hold on. Be quite honest. We cheat.
The flashbulbs started going off and the murmurs started up inside of the audience. And Steve and I actually then at that point admitted that Project Alpha and us as psychics was nothing more than a bit of illusion.
The $1 Million Challenge is a challenge that James Randi and his foundation set up where anyone who can deliver proof that they have genuine psychic powers will receive $1 million. Nobody to this day has ever claimed the prize.
The foundation has for many years now offered $1 million prize to any person or persons who can provide evidence of any paranormal, occult, or supernatural event of any kind under proper observing conditions. That's the statement succinctly. And you would think, if you look out the window there and this one over here, you'd think that there'd be a lineup of people, wouldn't you? Waiting to win the $1 million prize, because they claim that there are tens of thousands of psychics all over the world. Where are they?
Randi has had his fair share of haters throughout his career. He has been yelled at by audience members of talk shows and even presenters of talk shows like on The Don Lane Show.
You say Uri Geller is a fake. You came here and you're giving everybody a lot of lip service, and you haven't done anything. We're going for a commercial break, and you can piss off. We'll be back with Diana Trout.
The public really doesn't listen when they're being told straightforward facts. They would rather accept what some charismatic character tells them than really think about what the truth might be.
However, Randi usually kept his cool. Well, most of the time.
There's nothing intrinsically bad about Sylvia Browne that isn't bad about all of the people who pretend to the grieving people out there who need them or believe they need them, that they can speak to the dead. No, I have gone after Sylvia Browne because she's a big figure. Would you mind? I go after Sylvia Browne because she is a major figure in the field.
Despite him sometimes coming across as having a demeaning and demonstrative personality, Randi has managed to convince people who otherwise would be gullible to not believe everything they see when it comes to psychics and people claiming they can do something that really isn't possible. This has over time built up his legend and has painted him as a man who is renowned to be a truth seeker and a debunker of fake demonstrations of psychic powers, although he wouldn't refer to himself as a debunker. Randi's life saying that he lives by is one everyone should live by, and that is,
no matter how smart or well-educated you are, you can be deceived.
Who's wearing a wristwatch here? A regular, ordinary wristwatch? You've been a good girl, haven't you? Yes. That's a Seiko. I thought it was a Rolex for a minute. Oh, well. Now, what time does it say on your watch? It says 9 minutes before 3, and it says it's the 2nd of October, right? Very good. Open up your hand for me, flat like that. The clean one. She almost changed, you know that? Almost changed. Now, I'm going to put the watch face down your head. Put your finger of your other hand on the back of the watch, okay? Very good. Now, my watch says 9 minutes to 3, so we disagree slightly, but not enough for any never mind. Okay, watch what happens now. I'm really concentrating now. Oh, I think I hurt myself. Don't laugh, this is science. Let me see now, holding it only by this. Oh, would you tell the folks what time it says on your watch now, please?
It says 3:40. But
3:40, how time flies when you're having fun. Isn't that wonderful? Now, let me show you something. This is such a little tiny itty-bitty watch. Here, hold it tightly in your hand. Don't lose.
Oh, my goodness.
What happened? Oh, the gentleman was carrying it over here behind his waist, and he didn't even know it. There you go. You have your watch. Do it again. Do it again.